Hello, and welcome to the Indie Beginning Podcast, where we bring story lovers wonderful tales created by independently published authors. It is our mission to help indie authors grow through reviews and dialogue. This episode is brought to you by the wonderful people over at Burial Grounds Coffee Company. Purchase a bag of Death Star or one of their unique coffee blends at burialgrounds.coffee. Remember to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcasting platform and leave a review. You may also want to head over to acmbooks.com/indie-beginning, where you can find all of the episodes and more. This week, we bring you the indie tale My Remarkable Little Monkey by Mark Langs. This story follows Marty, who is in search of the perfect animal companion, but discovers something so much more. Mark Langs came into the world the same momentous year that Disney opened its doors to the public, the same year that Jim Henson first gave life to Kermit the Frog, and the same year Elvis Presley made his television debut on KSLA TV. All of his life, Mark wanted to write fiction, but he sought after the almighty dollar instead. At the age of 60, he dropped out of the rat race and took up writing full-time. He hopes his books entertain, but also hopes that they make people think, laugh, and cry. As you will see during the beginning of this tale, Mark Langs is hitting all of those goals right from the start. And now, allow Indie Beginning to introduce you to My Remarkable Little Monkey by Mark Langs.
Surely you've heard of it. It has a name. They call it the infinite monkey theorem. If you don't believe me, you can check it out on the internet. You'll find it described on Wikipedia, where they say one of the first known references to the idea was by a French mathematician named Emile Borel back in 1913. I had first heard about the theorem when I was a kid in grade school from my 4th grade teacher, Miss Blaine. She told us that if you were to put a single monkey in a room with a computer and a word processing program for an infinite period of time, the monkey would eventually type all the works of William Shakespeare without a single spelling mistake. 14 years after Miss Blaine told us this story, I would have a monkey of my own, and I would name him after the theorem. Yes, I named him William Shakespeare. What a great name for a monkey, no? He was a capuchin who I purchased from a man in Riverside, about an hour's drive from my home. Before I tell you about the day I purchased Shakespeare, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Marty Anderson, and I'm now 38 years old. The story starts when I was 23, on a day I purchased Shakespeare. When I made the purchase, I recently graduated from the University of California at Berkeley, where I majored in business administration. It's not that I had a burning interest in business, but at the time I had no real passion in my life. Not the way some kids do with music, art, literature, medicine, engineering, or whatever. My father had suggested business as an ideal choice and major. It was my father's opinion that everything in life was a business of one kind or another. So if I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my life, a business degree would always come in handy. This made sense to me, so I followed my father's advice and spent 4 years of college concentrating on accounting, economics, and the management of people. I took a lot of classes as well, getting a well-rounded education. I have no complaints about college, and I think that I got a lot out of my 4 years. It wasn't imperative to me to have a job lined up when I graduated. My father had made a fortune in the real estate industry developing office buildings all over Southern California, and he had left me a substantial inheritance when he died during my junior year in college. Both he and my mother died that same night, hit head-on by a drunk teenager on the Pacific Coast Highway while they were on their way home from a restaurant in Huntington Beach. The teenager also died. It was a horrific accident, and there was pictures of it on the 11 o'clock news. That's how I found out about it, by watching the evening news. I was at my parents' home in Newport Beach on the night of the accident, visiting for spring break. The reporter didn't say who died in the wreck pending notification of families, but seeing what was left of the car, I knew it was theirs. It was a 1957 red and white Corvette, the car my dad had liked to take out on weekend evenings. My dad had quite a few cars, but the Corvette was his favorite. I checked the garage after watching the story on the news, and sure enough, the car was gone. I got a visit from several police officers a short time later, giving me the awful news that both my parents had just been killed in the accident. It was a terrible tragedy, and it affected me deeply. I am an only child with no brothers or sisters. When Mom and Dad died, I was left alone. Well, except for Uncle George, Aunt Margaret, and my 2 cousins. I seldom saw these people, though, since they live back in East Vermont. I graduated from Berkeley when I was 22, and now live about 5 minutes from my parents' old house in a place my father bought for me before he died. It's a typical little dwelling in a beach community. I'm probably making it sound more humble than it actually is. Corona del Mar, the town I live in, is a desirable place to live in, and the homes here are quite expensive. My dad purchased the place when I was 18 and rented it out while I was at Berkeley. It was his intention for me to move into the house when I was done with college. He told me the place was mine if I wanted it. Well, of course I wanted it. What kid in his early 20s wouldn't want to live near a beach in such a perfect little house? When I graduated and moved back to Southern California, I asked the tenants to move out, and I moved in. It has 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a small backyard. It has lots of bricks and wood siding and several mature cypress trees in the front yard. I use one side of the 2-car garage to park my car, and the other side I store the boxes of all the stuff I kept after clearing out and selling my parents' house. Dad left me a ton of money when he passed away. I had no need to get a job, so I didn't. I spent a lot of my time playing tennis, reading, going to parties, working in the yard, and improving the house Dad had bought me. I remodeled and renovated every room, doing most of the work myself, learning the trades as I went along. It was a lot of fun and kept me busy. With the money Dad left me, I could have bought something a lot nicer and a lot larger, but I knew Dad had wanted me to live in this particular house. So I stayed, and I kept myself hopping with activities. Not everything I did was about me, for I found charity to which I could give a good chunk of my time. They needed someone with the talents I had, and my business degree from Berkeley proved helpful. I kept their books, did their tax returns, and helped them manage their financial affairs. It was a scholarship fund founded by one of my father's oldest friends, Vince Atkins, and we were helping a lot of disadvantaged kids go to college. Except for the fact that I didn't have a job, I lived a normal life. And it was a satisfying life, on the surface anyway. Deep down, I feel I was missing something. So is this why I wanted to purchase a monkey? I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. You know, all the people wish they could be rich until they actually are. Once you're rich, it's funny what happens to you. You don't want to give up a dime of your fortune, yet you complain about being wealthy as though it's a curse. So what was I complaining about? I found myself complaining especially about other people, about the way they looked at me, and about the way they treated me. There's no denying the fact that you're different when you have a lot of money, and not necessarily in a good way. You aren't especially talented or humorous or witty or intelligent, but everybody tries to make you feel as though you are. They want to chum up to you, to feel closer to your wealth. They want a piece of the action. I don't know that I'd met a single sincere woman since coming back to Southern California and moving into my house in Corona del Mar. Things had been so much different in college. While living in Berkeley, I had been just another ordinary student, and girls weren't exactly fawning over me. In fact, if I hadn't gone out of my way to know them, I doubt any of them ever would have even said hi. When I purchased Shakespeare, I was dating a young woman named Kimberly Koch. She was typical of the sort of females I was meeting. She was an attractive brunette with big brown eyes and charming smile. She could fool you with her smile, fool you into thinking she really cared about you as a person. That was what she was good at, making you think there was a special place in her heart just for you. But the truth was that my bank account and all of its zeros were a lot more interest to her than I ever would be. Slowly but surely, the telltale signs began to appear just as they had with the other girls I had dated. "Why do you live in a little house?" she finally asked. "With your money, you could afford a place 3 times this size." Whenever we went anywhere in my car, she always wanted to know why I didn't trade it in for something more in keeping with my net worth. And when we went out to dinner, it always had to be at a restaurant that charged an arm and a leg for its pretentious, minuscule portions of food. Not enough to feed a flea. Have you ever been to one of these restaurants? I don't know about you, but I like to feel that I'm actually getting something with my money. No, I didn't like these restaurants, and I was very fond of my rusty old car. With women like Kimberly on my scent, I was getting nowhere with my love life. True, I knew lots of people and went to lots of parties. Aunt Kimberly and I were out often, yet I felt so alone. I needed something different. I wanted a companion without all the pretense and perfume. And that's when I decided I needed a monkey. Well, I didn't decide on a monkey immediately. At first I considered a dog or a cat, the usual and more acceptable route to go. But what would I do with a dog or a cat? They were too subservient for my taste and too docile. I needed a companion who would stand up for himself, be reasonably independent, and desire to do something other than hang around the house all day, waiting to be fed and hoping to be petted. I read up on monkeys and learned that they were truly a handful to take care of. Much of what I read said that they actually made terrible pets, that they were not like dogs or cats, that they were wild animals who actually didn't belong cooped up in a house with human owners. I read all these warnings, and the more I read, the more I wanted a monkey. I needed some kind of challenge in my humdrum life, something to keep me on my toes, and I needed a real companion, not someone or something that was just after food and money. I wanted a wild animal, trained to behave himself and keep me company. The animal would be wonderfully independent, yet also willing to be my friend, and I knew after further research the exact type of monkey to get, a capuchin. The same little monkeys they used to dress up and train to collect money for old-fashioned organ grinders, taking coins and dollar bills from the hands of onlookers and dropping the booty into their little tin cups. Yes, an organ grinder's monkey. I had seen an organ grinder and his capuchin once when I was a child. It was a wonderfully intelligent, long-tailed living being with perfect little hands and feet and delightful bright-eyed face. Where should we find this monkey? Certainly not at a pet store. Going on the internet, I found a guy in Riverside who had several capuchins, one of whom was up for sale. It was a baby, and according to the posting, the man already had too many monkeys in his house. Another baby monkey was the last thing he needed, and he was looking for a buyer. I did some more research on the internet and learned that one had to have a special license to own an animal, and that the government gave out licenses to only those who actually needed a monkey, such as paraplegics who used trained capuchins to perform certain tasks. Since it was unlikely that I could get an actual license, being that I had no special need other than my own desire to have one, I asked the man in Riverside if he'd sell it to me anyways, even knowing I had no plan to get proper license. He told me that he needed to get rid of the creature as soon as possible, and that if I had the cash, the monkey was mine. To heck with licensing. Just don't let it get around that you have a monkey in your house, he said. So I met the man at his house the next day. He lived on several acres out in the middle of nowhere, in the dry rolling hills of Riverside County, in a house that looked like it had been painted and repaired for many years. I pulled into the driveway and he came out through the front door expecting me. "You must be Marty," he said. "I am," I replied. "You must be Vern." "That's me. Come on in." I followed Vern into his house. He was an older guy, probably in his 60s, dressed in a plaid shirt and jeans. He had a head full of uncombed gray hair and a face lined with wrinkles. His eyes sparkled, the pale blue color of clear sky. I liked his eyes, and they made me feel comfortable with him and our transaction. "Sorry if I'm a little late," I said. "I ran into a lot of traffic on the way here." "Here he is," Vern said. He was now holding a tiny monkey in his hands. "Go ahead and hold him yourself." "Oh, yes," I said. He handed the monkey to me. As I held the monkey, he looked up at me with the most amazing expression on his face. There's just something so special you get out of a monkey's face, a feeling you don't get looking at a dog or a cat. "Cute little bugger, isn't he?" "Yes, he's very cute." "Just a year old." "Where are his parents?" "I locked them up in the bedroom. I didn't want them to see their baby being taken away." "He seems to like me." I said this because he was so docile. He just sat in my hands, looking at me with his remarkable eyes. "He's a smart little bugger. Capuchins are supposed to be smart, aren't they? I mean, this one is really clever." "Why do you say that?" "Do you notice anything unusual about him?" "No. Should I?" "He isn't wearing a diaper." "No, I guess he isn't. His mom and dad are still in diapers. Capuchins have to wear diapers. Otherwise, the house would be a mess. They'd be pooping and peeing all over the place." "Of course." "But not this one." "Why not?" "He's toilet trained himself." "He did?" "He wasn't even mine yet, and yet already I was proud of the little guy. I didn't have to teach him a thing. He just figured it out himself. He saw me using the toilet one day. I had happened to leave the door open, and he picked up on what to do right away. Hasn't worn a diaper since. He sits on the seat, balancing himself with his tail, and does his business like a trooper, wiping himself with the paper and flushes the toilet. No fuss, no muss. Wow, I said. Never had a monkey do that before. I'd keep the little bugger, but like I told you over the phone, I've already got 3 of them, his mom and his dad and a third. They're all I can handle. I think he likes me. I was looking again at the monkey's face. Did you bring your checkbook? Are we still okay with the price? It's an awful lot to pay for a pet. A monkey's much more than a pet. I guess so. You'll find out. Do you know how to take care of him once you get him home? I've done a lot of research on the internet. That's good. Yes, I think I'm ready for him. Can you hold him for me for a second? I'll write you a check. I suddenly heard some banging on Vern's bedroom doors. What's all that? I asked. It must be his parents. They probably know something's up. That you're selling their baby? Something like that. These animals are pretty smart. Should we even be doing this? Do you want the monkey or not? Vern asked firmly. He didn't want me changing my mind or wasting his time. I thought about it, and then I looked at the little monkey in Vern's hands. He was still looking at me. Yes, I want him. Then write the check and take him away. By this time tomorrow, his parents will have forgotten they even had a baby. I doubted this was true and figured Vern was saying this to make me feel better about taking their baby away. I wrote the check and handed it to Vern. I then took my monkey from Vern's hands, and Vern accompanied me out of the old house. When we got to my car, I asked Vern if he thought it was safe for me to drive with a loose monkey in the car, and Vern said he did it all the time. I had an impression Vern would have said anything to get me out of there. He just wanted me to go. As we backed out, Vern was waving to us. I doubt he was waving to me. I think he was waving to his baby monkey. I think it broke the poor guy's heart seeing the little guy leave. The monkey just sat on the passenger seat of my car, quietly and without making a scene, still staring at me. I'll take good care of you, I said. I don't know what Vern's been calling you, but I have a name in mind. I'd like to call you Shakespeare if that's okay with you. Obviously, there was no response from Shakespeare, for he was only a monkey, and it would have been hard to believe he had any idea what I was talking about. When we arrived home, I let Shakespeare explore the house. He checked out all the rooms, and although I had no way of knowing this for sure, I felt like everything was to his liking. When he was done checking out the house, he went to the kitchen and stood in front of the refrigerator. I took this to mean that he was hungry. Of course he knew what a refrigerator was, having lived for a year with Vern, having seen him open his own refrigerator door again and again for food. I opened the refrigerator door and removed the fruit platter I purchased earlier that day from the grocery store, and also grabbed a banana from the counter. I put the items on the breakfast table, and Shakespeare jumped on the table and checked the stuff out. The banana seemed especially to his liking, and he picked it up, peeled it open, and took a bite. He was so small that he nibbled off only the end of the banana. He also tried other fruit, including a piece of watermelon and a chunk of cantaloupe. He even tried a grape. It was funny watching him eat, and he didn't seem to mind my staring at him. When he was done eating, I put the fruit back in the refrigerator and got him a glass of water from the faucet. He knew how to use a glass right away, holding it to his lips with both hands as he drank. Vern must have taught him how to do this. When he was done, he jumped to the kitchen counter, put the empty glass in the sink. That's a good boy, I said. Vern has taught you well. So how would you like to watch a little TV with me? There's a Lakers game on this afternoon. It should be starting soon. I didn't know why I was talking to Shakespeare about watching a Lakers game. He'd have no idea what I was talking about. It was funny how people talk to their animals, I thought, as if they were actually listening and could understand anything they were saying. I stepped over to the sofa and grabbed the remote, turning on the TV. Shakespeare stayed at the kitchen sink for a moment, seemingly wondering what he should do. And then he jumped down onto the floor and ran over to join me at the sofa. I sat on one end, and Shakespeare got comfortable on the other. I put my hands behind my head, leaning back. Shakespeare did the same, putting his tiny hands behind his own head and leaning back. I then crossed my legs, and he crossed his too. He was mimicking me. I laughed at this. After I laughed, Shakespeare made a similar sound that I suppose could be misunderstood as his own laugh. It was weird having a furry little monkey on my sofa, copying everything I did. But it wasn't all that disconcerting. It made me feel like the two of us were going to be great pals. For the rest of the afternoon, we watched the basketball game. Around dinner time, I got a call from Kimberly. Apparently, she still thought the two of us had a future together. And when I answered the phone, she was cheerful, nearly giddy. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Nothing that I know of." "Do you want to come over?" "I can't right now." "Well, should I come over to your place?" "Oh, no," I said. "Don't come over here." "Why not?" "I'm kind of busy." "Busy doing what?" "I kind of have a guest over." "Is it someone I know?" "No," I said. "Who is it?" "I can't tell you." "What do you mean you can't tell me?" "I just can't." "Oh, I see," Kimberly said, as if she had figured me out, thinking that I had another woman over. "It's not what you think." "Well, what else could it be?" "Something different." There was a long pause on the phone as Kimberly thought about this. "If you didn't want to see me anymore, all you had to do was say so." "You're right," I said. Seeing this as an opportunity to get her out of my life once and for all, I added without lying, "I should have told you about my new friend." I knew she would interpret this to mean I was with a new woman friend. She knew nothing about my monkey, and I needed to keep it that way. Then I told her I was sorry if I had hurt her feelings. There was another pause on the phone, and then click, she had hung up on me. "Good job," I said to Shakespeare, who was still on the sofa, minding his own business and watching the TV with his hands behind his head. Already the little guy was proving to be handy. I've been wondering for weeks how I was going to get Kimberly out of my life, and with Shakespeare at my side, we'd done it in just a matter of minutes. What a great idea this had been, bringing home a little monkey. Even if he was rather expensive, he was worth every cent. In the months that followed, we got along famously. He followed me around the house wherever I went, watching me, learning from me. He didn't tear the house apart, knocking things over or throwing objects the way some monkeys might. He was very well behaved. And he'd been growing. He'd been large enough now to open the refrigerator door on his own. He'd jump up and grab the handle with both hands, and then planting his feet against the kitchen cabinet, he'd pull the door open easily. He'd get his food out of the refrigerator and place it on the breakfast table to eat. He also knew how to get himself a glass from the cupboard and fill it with water at the faucet. Vern was right. He was smart. What was most interesting about Shakespeare, however, was that he liked to watch TV. I knew he didn't have any idea what people were doing or what they were saying, but he'd spent hours glued to the tube, watching show after show. He'd seen me using the TV remote, and several times I saw him pick it up and aim it, pressing random buttons, trying to make the device work for him. So I finally sat down with him one day and tried to teach him how to use it, showing him which button to push to turn the set on and off. I taught him how to change the channels and how to adjust the volume. It didn't take him long to learn these commands, and in no time he was controlling the TV all by himself. Then the most remarkable thing happened. One afternoon I walked into the room while he was watching a talk show, and he had the remote in his lap. He sat up, set the remote down on the coffee table, and jumped off the sofa. He went over to the television and put his little hand on it, as if showing it to me, and then he looked at me. "TV?" he said. "What?" I said. "Say it again." "TV," he said again. There was no question as to whether he had spoken or what he had said. His voice was high-pitched like some silly cartoon character, but it was clear and emphatic. "TV, TV, TV," he said. "Yes," I exclaimed. He jumped up and down, clicking his tongue. He was very excited. "That's the TV," I said. "You're right, that's our TV."
Where will this friendship lead, and what adventure is Shakespeare about to create? My Remarkable Little Monkey is available on Amazon. And now, for your part of the podcast. This is the part where you, the listener, becomes part of the program. Your reviews not only let authors know how you have reacted to their work, but also helps them grow as an artist. Also, you may find yourself on next week's episode. Leave a review for this tale on acmbooks.com/indie-beginning, on any of our social media pages using the hashtag IndieBeginningReview, or send us an audio file to reviews.indiebeginning@gmail.com. We'd even love for you to rate us on your favorite podcast platform. Music found in this week's episode was written and performed by Philip Weigel. I am your host, Ben, asking everybody to read more books, be the best possible you, and to simply enjoy this wonderful life. Thanks for listening.